Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Follow the Rabbit. It's before 8 a.m., so I think in this kind of context, I can break the fourth wall and say it's pretty early in the morning. And we're recording an episode about sleep. As regular listeners actually know, we are documenting emerging trends and cultural phenomena here at Follow the Rabbit. And today we are adding a new episode to our series about health as a luxury. So we covered a lot of ground already. And today we want to look into sleep and how it became a luxury component as well. And looking into this episode, for me, one of the earliest examples of when I understood that sleep can be a luxury is when a friend got, when I was a teenager, a waterbed. They were quite novel back then, which means that I'm pretty old. And looking into it, I realized that those beds are prohibitively expensive. And that was, I think, for me, the first realization that there are different ways of enjoying sleep and how to invest into your sleep. As a teenager, it was mostly about having something different. But I think as people grow older and appreciate a lot more facets about investing into their health, as we covered, for example, in the first episode as well, which we're bringing a little bit back to, we wanted to look into what is happening in sleep, what the science says about it right now, and what is out there in terms of products and opportunities to spend money on the quality of sleep that you can get. And with that, I will let Johannes give us an introduction into the topic. And thank you for listening in.
Yeah, so Waterbeds, I quickly looked it up. They're still available, but their sales numbers have really declined. I think at some point they've made like 20% of all mattresses sold. Now
Really?
they're like down to 2 or something like that. They still have a very enthusiastic stance who swear by
there is a subreddit for waterbeds.
For sure. I think they got a lot more fancier, different heating systems and stuff like that. But
sure,
the main thing seems to be that they require a lot of maintenance, and I don't think people are willing to do that anymore because there are good alternatives to that. And just to draw back a bit, I'm fascinated by this topic. And as Igor mentioned, it's not a new topic. Sleep as a status symbol has been around for some time, but it's interesting to look at it from a longer perspective and see, especially from a perspective of a luxury thing and also the status thing, how it has changed in the last, I would say, 7 to 8 years. To start off, it's interesting because it used to be very different, especially among elites and the wealthy, where sleep was something where you prided yourself on how little you were getting. In the research, I found like one of the famous Elon Musk tweets from, I think, 2019, where he talks about that he has like 120 hours work weeks and that he sleeps very little. And if he sleeps on the factory floor on like one of his Tesla factories.
Which kind of brings us back to the whole American Psycho analogy as well.
There you go.
Because
pretty sure he didn't do push-ups in the morning.
I'm pretty sure either, but I think that's the only way that American Psycho speaks about the fact that he actually sleeps, because he apparently got out of bed. Otherwise, the whole movie pretends. Otherwise, the whole movie pretends that sleep doesn't happen really.
And he also like says that it made him go crazy, which we can all agree on is right. But that still, like, he has. I don't think he would then, but now, as the richest man on earth, that was like sending a signal. I work so hard, I sleep so little. And that used to be like the main idea then of like hustle culture and like, this is how you get ahead. Sleep is for pussies kind of slogans. I sleep when I'm dead. And then something interesting happening in 2017, Matthew Walker, I think, has his sleep laboratory at Harvard, if I'm correct. published his book, Why We Sleep. And he was just at the beginning of, if you release an interesting book, you tour all the podcasts. I vividly remember hearing him on Ritual and going, holy shit, because he brought together all of the research he had on sleep, and he deliberately went overboard with it in saying our culture around sleep is killing us, like literally killing us. And was making a lot of comparison, like if you sleep less than 6 hours for like a couple of days, you have the same level of awakeness as if you're constantly on marijuana. And he had a lot of numbers, a lot of examples of lack of sleep being really, really bad.
And to kind of contextualize it's been a really big seller. Like this book is not just a niche kind of interest. It was bestseller at the New York Times. In the UK, it actually ranked number 8 overall on the New York Times bestseller list for that year. So it I think had a really big impact on just a general conversation around this topic.
Yeah, I mean, Arianna Huffington was a huge sleep advocate already for a long time. So there were different factors. There was also just a lot of research and studies coming out of research labs and universities who basically telling us, yeah, this hustle culture, this like I sleep when I'm dead thing, you're going to be dead a lot sooner if you're not sleeping. So if you want to go that route, down the road. And I think this really changed the idea of, we have to do something different about that. And actually getting a good night of sleep will make you perform better. So it is interesting how it not changed this whole notion of I have to be super productive, I have to perform really well in our and capitalism culture. But it like this is the killer ingredient, perform better.
You know what it made me think about? It's actually, so Jeff Staple had a few stories about why he doesn't drink. And he had a story about Nas when they would hang out. And I mean, when you say like, I'm sleep when I'm dead, I keep kind of thinking about sleep is the cousin of death line from Nas's track. And Jeff Sable would explain why he wouldn't drink so that he can actually be fit to do his hustle. So I think there's also an interesting aspect about that where people are like, well, if you fuck yourself up the night before by drinking, you have a really awful kind of sleep. Like as a proper New Yorker that Staple is, he wants to just do his hustle. But I think he managed always to have this healthy version of it in the sense that he's like, I need to be rested so that I'm not super tired.
Yeah, I think with that, there was a change in the perception of what productivity actually is. It's not I can work more hours, but I can work more effectively. My brain is more switched on. I can do more focused, concentrated work instead of just putting in the hours. The interesting part is the first, I would say, tech devices that jumped on that were the fitness trackers. Before that, they were really focused on steps and heart rate for your movement and activity in sports. They tracked that. And they quickly understood, they could do something when they also would track sleep. I remember the first Apple Watches, you wouldn't wear them at night because the battery life was so bad and because they didn't do anything with the data. And then it started to appear. I remember the first sleep tracking apps on an iPhone where you would put the iPhone on your mattress so that it could recognize the movement kind of thing.
And it would get super hot because you would have to charge it and the phone would get super hot.
It was all very strange and all didn't really work too well because they had the accelerometer sensors and stuff like that are good to track some movement, but movement is not the only indication of what sleep stage you're in these kind of things.
And also they assume somehow that you always sleep alone.
Yeah, there you go. Or like always have your own mattress, which I think is very helpful for good sleep.
That's true, but it's not the case for everyone.
So this is the time when we get something like Aura, the Aura ring, that I think pretty much from the beginning focused on sleep. because it, from all the devices, it is the one most comfortable to wear while sleeping, because it's not a huge thing on your arm. And that's where we're getting to like a new cultural signaling, because it's like it's a ring. If you know, like I've been like approached in Prenzlauer Berg cafes. Oh, is that an Oura ring? I have one too.
The
And
secret
so,
handshake.
so we're getting from Elon Musk, like boasting about sleeping on a factory floor if he sleeps at all, to, like we mentioned in the first episode of the season, Kim Kardashian boasting about her amazing sleep score, challenging Gwyneth Paltrow to like sleep score off. We're going back and forth on Instagram.
The ultimate face-off.
There you go. And I think that established, or like in the public mind, established this idea of, oh, sleep can be a status symbol now. Like again, like the thing we always have with health as luxury, we're moving away from I have a fancy car, I have shiny clothes or very expensive clothes, to a more, you would say, quiet, something that is more focused on like health and well-being and wellness. And sleep is a really good thing in that, because for once, like tools like Aura help us like quantify it and put a score up, but it's also something that you can invest a lot of money in. And so we've seen the rise of like a sleep industry over the last couple of years, who has gone to amazing lengths to create really expensive sleeping experiences.
Well, I think there's another component. In fact, that because it's documentable, it becomes communicatable. So because there is a score and it is on a display, you can actually share it. And I think that becomes that thing where as soon as you can compete around it, as soon as you can create out of this a social object, as Yuri Engström would say, it becomes, well, first of all, it becomes monetizable, but also it becomes a lot more accessible to many more people, because there's now a thing that you can aspire to. And I think that really influenced the way those kind of services, products can actually access new customers. Because otherwise, like with waterbeds, you had to go into a shop that sells waterbeds. But for that, you had to already know that you want to do something about your sleep, and the waterbed might be an alternative for that. Now you have like all those things, as we discussed in the first episode about GLP-1s, where health products or, health adjacent services become the same thing as buying clothes online. And sleep is another component of that. Suddenly you had a score and everyone can start trying to achieve the same score that Kim Kardashian wants, despite the fact that she has probably some other things that are allowing her to sleep well.
Yeah, but I think the one thing is the comparability of a score. But I think it starts with, I now have a score and I want to improve it. What can I do to improve it? And the easiest thing, if you have money, is to throw money at it. So you really kit out your sleeping room. You buy the most expensive, best mattresses. And there are mattresses like the Hastings Grand Vividus that will set you back $200,000. And I mean, if that isn't a status symbol, I don't know what is. 8 Sleep is one of those examples. The 8 Sleep pod, if you have listened to any health podcast in the US, you have come upon the advertising, which is basically a cover that is, again, maybe the successor to Waterbeds, that it has water in it, but a very thin layer that can be heated up or cooled down to the perfect temperature for your sleep. That temperatures plays a big role in our sleep quality, and our body temperature changes overnight, and so it can accommodate that. Also does a lot of tracking of your sleep. I mean, it's $2,500 to get a sleep pod for
I
you
have
and your
to say,
partner.
that's the one that I'm kind of curious about, to be perfectly honest, because me and my wife have very different temperature kind of setups. And
Yes.
for romantic reasons, we sleep under one blanket. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's the different like perceptions of temperature are. And so this one was actually something that is I find interesting enough because it actually solves a problem.
It's true. It's true. I mean, yeah, kudos to you to be so much about your romantic life. Whenever we are on vacation in like the Mediterranean, where it's very common to have one blanket up, the best thing is always coming back and having two separate mattresses. That for us
Yeah.
was the first thing. And then
Yeah, for sure.
everybody having their own blanket, because I have the same. I have a very different temperature sensitivity than my partner. That would be very difficult. But so yeah, I get the appeal of that. But again, it's one of those things. So when looking into that, like there's a lot more you can do for your room. I mean, there is like EMF protecting mattresses to like protect you from like some wireless frequencies. There's
Weighted blankets.
weighted. I mean, weighted blankets are, I think by now, not even a luxury thing, but like really kitting out your room, putting perfect temperature everywhere. I think there's a lot of different things. And so, and then when you focused on creating your perfect sleep experience at home, it's always interesting to look at what are other industries doing to jump on that trend. And what was new to me is that especially the hospitality and luxury travel hotel industry has done a lot to accommodate this. So they have very special sleep retreats, consultations. There's even a lot of sleep training or coaching connected to that. So it's interesting how nowadays some people seem to go on vacation to sleep, which I can understand. If you have a very busy daily life, then you go away and you want to make it perfect. So, and I see a lot more hotels actually advertising that they have like different pillows and very, very good mattresses. I think Motel One is one of those who are saying, we don't offer much amenities, but we have really good mattresses because that's the most important thing. So yeah, it's interesting to see how these industries are reacting to these kind of trends.
For sure. I think for me, as a parent of a toddler, going on a business trip these days is basically getting a good night's sleep. So I don't even need a really good mattress. I just need uninterrupted sleep. That comes, I think, also from experience and just traveling a lot over the last 20 years, where you appreciate whenever you have a hotel that invested more into the bed and the environment that you can sleep in. There are so many components that go into this quality of sleep part in a hotel room. It starts with the bed, obviously, but if you have a great bed, but the climate control system is loud or rattling about, you can have the best mattress in the world. It doesn't really change anything. Or just the fact that some climate control systems are not adjustable the way that you need it to be. So it's either too cool or too warm. There is no fresh air. I think for hotels, this is a really crucial component that if they invest right into it and they actually do something that really works, that's a very substantial benefit for customers to come back to that specific chain that solved that problem for them. But it's certainly a problem whenever you book an Airbnb, because I feel there's a lot of ground that Airbnbs can cover. You kind of don't really know. I mean, some of them describe that. Those kind of things are not usually super high on the description page of an Airbnb. That differs with a certain kind of price range, obviously. But it's interesting how this might also change when people are basically start not looking for Airbnbs only if they have an electric charger for their car, but also this ability to filter for really good quality mattresses and blankets and pillows and so forth.
And I remember when biohackers would always talk about bringing gaffer tape when they travel to close up any of the little lights from the TV or something like that is in a hotel room. It's interesting how that changes. The best thing I did for sleeping while traveling is buying a sleeping mask.
Yeah.
that did all the change for me. But the interesting part is if we now shift more to the health as a luxury, and there's some like class differences in sleep that I think are really important, because there's also a lot of research that is saying that being in like a quiet neighborhood, being more lower to the ground, not so high up, really impacts the quality of your sleep. But that's even less affordable to a lot of people than a $200,000 mattress. It's where can you sleep, and that's why I think also a factor why more wealthy neighborhoods look like they look. It's a lot of low rise. It's set apart. It's really quiet at night. No big streets going through that. I think these are the factors that you can just throw technology and money at, but they're much more important, and they will make a huge difference. And I mean, never there is a conversation about sleep quality in the health influencer podcast or Instagram post. Always somebody comes out, yeah, but I have to do shift work. It's gonna be shitty for me. What do I do? And of course, there are things that help. I mean, there's also the part that just comes to mind, that whenever you listen to Huberman or Walker on podcasts, it's always about, like, okay, what supplements can I take? What can I throw at my body to sleep better? It's interesting how the notion around melatonin has changed, because I think actually Huberman did a good job on that, of being like, be careful about that. It's a hormone, so it has a lot of influence on your body.
That's the first year people, the listener, that he actually praising Huberman.
No, I get credit where credit is due. I think he's like, he used his influence to direct people away from just taking melatonin every night, because that can be dangerous. But nevertheless, that's something that a lot of people are doing. And I mean, there's the whole like sauna before sleep and ice baths in the morning kind of thing too. Like, I mean, the funny thing again is, like, I always joke that now every morning I can observe the Huberman listeners in Prenzlauer Berg going outside to catch that early light to regulate their biorhythm and sleep rhythm with that. I mean, there's this aspect of that.
They don't drink coffee in the morning either.
Yeah, they don't drink coffee in the morning, so they need the sun. I actually found I was quite. I mean, right now, I mean, we're going to 8:30, and this kind of getting a bit lighter outside, but winter here is tough. So I'm actually quite happy that at some point it was clear that you can take sunlight in the eye in the morning, or you can just move and do some sports, and it has a similar effect. I want to end on one really interesting aspect that brings us back to the beginning. So as I said, like, Matthew Walker in his book Why We Sleep was very instrumental in like getting us on this trajectory of sleep, the importance of sleep, on good quality sleep, and by this also sleep as a status symbol. Because the effect of his book were not quite so only good, because he deliberately overdid it and like really creating this we're killing ourselves mentality. People went crazy about sleep. So if they didn't sleep too well, if they woke up a couple of times, or they didn't do 8 hours of full sleep, they got really anxious. Or their score
said something, their score didn't show a good number.
Yeah. So they got really anxious. And it got to a point where some researchers created the term orthosomnia to describe a condition where you're so anxious about sleep that you don't sleep well, where you're so desperately trying to sleep well that it affects your sleep and you don't sleep well. To his credit, Matthew Walker actually talked about it recently in some podcasts, that was wrong, that is a problem, that we need to relax a bit more about sleep. But I find it fascinating where whenever we overdo something or focus too much on it, it always has the danger of taking us in the wrong direction. And being too anxious about something is always detrimental to it.
Well, I mean that brings us to this to this thing that you and we were like talking for years in terms of also user experience around the topic of just health apps and services and how they can actually do help people in a humane way. And a lot of them are falling short in the sense that they're displaying like very complex information in a very simplified way. And it makes it very hard to have an emotionally controllable relationship to it, because every time you look at the app, you get like dopamine rush of like, oh, I achieved like a really good run, or I had like really good sleep score today. And then the next day you had the like really bad sleep score. And you might not have even had like drink or anything, but something somewhere disturbed your sleep. And there are really a lot of reasons why this could be. It may be some construction work outside on your street, something else happening that disturbs you that you're not aware about. And those systems are really bad at providing contextual information in a way that really helps people make decisions about how to feel about the score and what to do about it. And I would say if you have money to spare and you can invest in certain gadgets that will help you sleep better, go ahead and do it. That's never a bad idea, because any quality of sleep that you can gain is definitely worthwhile. But it's important to understand that this is like, you can do a lot with making sure that there's no light coming into your room. Anything that provides kind of like some quiet and some less light, that's definitely a plus before you can go ahead and buy a really expensive gadget that will tell you only like a fraction of the information that you need about making decisions.
Yeah, there's always the one thing when people tell me, oh, I bought an Oura Ring or an Apple Watch and I'm going to track my sleep. I'm like, okay, you ready to say goodbye to alcohol in the evening? Because that's always the first thing, because you do 1 or 2 nights with drinking and then sleeping, and you see the numbers of how bad it makes your sleep. And that is one of the things where it is different a little bit from how you feel about your sleep and how the actual numbers are, because you sleep, but your heart rate just doesn't go down, so you don't have any restorative sleep. Yeah, it's always the first thing where, oh yeah, I'm drinking earlier now because I know how badly it influences me.
And this one is really funny because people have associated in a way like somebody in the immediate family thought that because they fall asleep better with alcohol, that makes sleep better, and you're like, no,
it's a sedative.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely falling asleep is easier, but that does make your sleep better.
Yeah. So for me, the thing with these tools and gadgets is I think they're quite helpful for a certain period. Like you use them for a couple of months, for example, and you learn about your patterns. You learn what helps you, what doesn't help you. So for me, for example, I just learned how like some breath work before sleep and just really slowing down is amazing. I never had a problem of falling asleep, but staying asleep is a different thing. And just down regulating my nervous system is really easy. And breath work doesn't cost anything. It just needs some discipline.
You don't actually need to work, don't need an app for that. You can actually just look it up.
There you go. And I think it's helpful to learn about yourself, and then you kind of have to let it go, because you really have to be aware of this trap of trying to constantly improve it and getting anxious about it, and by this having a counterproductive reaction to it. And I think it's the same with sports tracking, activity tracking, dietary tracking. Wherever we overdo it, and that's why I'm not a big. I get the business model, but I think it would be much more helpful if you could just use them for some time. I don't think I'm getting a consulting contract with Aura for this, but yeah, I think it's always good, especially when it comes to sleep, to let things go.
As you see, we are quite bad at getting sponsorship for this podcast because we discourage you from acquiring anything that might even have the chance of financing this podcast. To close it off, should you be interested in getting a link about any of the products or services or books that we mentioned today, drop us a line at ftr@knownunknowns.xyz, and we'll happily send you the things that we mentioned today. And with that, we appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode or any of our previous ones, as you have heard in other podcasts, rate us on the platform that you're listening to, because it does make a difference. Or recommend us to a friend who is maybe struggling to sleep better or has anxiety about sleep. That would help as well. Johannes, did I forget something?
Follow the Rabbit is a Known Unknowns production. It's hosted by me, Johannes Kleske, and Igor Schwartzman. So we say thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one. Have a good one.
See you.